Good morning. My name is Lindsay Portella, and I'm a volunteer for ABERT, an organization that provides useful tips for those who are teaching sexual education. So, which brings me to my first question. How many of you teach sexual education in your classrooms? That's a good number. Of those of you who teach sex education, how many of you feel that is effective in deterring your students from engaging in sexual activity? Not as many. Why do you feel that it's effective for those of you that think it is effective? What are some things that you talk about with your students? There are a lot of opposing viewpoints on this controversial issue, but according to Kirby Douglas, who wrote Sexual Education, an evaluation of programs and their effect, published in March of 2008, states, "Some believe the media, peers, and families have such a great impact upon young people's sexual beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that even comprehensive programs cannot have much impact of any kind." That's sad to me to think that our programs have no effect on our students that we're teaching. Rather than trying to deter or frighten young people away from having sex, effective sex education includes work on attitudes, beliefs, coupled with skills development that enable young people to choose whether or not that they have a sexual relationship, taking into account the potential risks of any sexual activity, according to Collins, Alleghary, and Summers, the authors of Abstinence Only versus Comprehensive Sex Education. What are the arguments? What is the evidence? In 2002. Well, for the past year, I've been doing research on what is the most effective form of sexual education, and hopefully by the time that you leave here today, I'll given you some good tools to take back to your classrooms and implement and help your students be more prepared for the future. The problem we're facing today as a country is one that involves a staggering number of unwanted teen pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. The numbers of these declining are actually quite scary. There are approximately 750,000 teen pregnancies that occur each year. 82% of those are unintended, 59% end in birth, and 1/4 end in abortion. According to Cost, Henshaw, and Claren, authors of Teenage Pregnancies, Births, and Abortions, National State Trends by Race and Ethnicity in 2010. Clearly, there is not enough education in our classrooms that are going to prevent students from engaging in sexual activity because they don't know the risk factors or they are not taught the correct information that they need to know. For many, the numbers that likely seem overwhelming because you're talking about nearly half of the sexually experienced teens at any one time having evidence of an STD, said Dr. Margaret Blythe, an adolescent medicine specialist at Indiana University School of Medicine and head of the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Adolescence. Dark wrote, "In teenage sexual and reproductive behavior in developed countries, can more progress be made?" in 2001, that every year, roughly 9 million new STDs occur among teens and young adults in the United States. That number is outrageous. 9 million? That's a huge, huge number. The issues are directly affecting the youth that we're teaching in our classrooms today. Dr. John Douglas, director of the CDC's Division of STD Prevention, has said that high STD rates among young women, particularly African Americans, are clear signs that we must continue developing ways to reach those most at risk. We can't give up, and we can't just say that none of our efforts are working. We have to strive for new ways to improve on these programs, which is how I'm going to tell you how we can change the unwanted trends. Much research has been done in the recent years to determine whether abstinence-based or safe sex approach to sexual education is better. While any type of education is actually very good, the most effective is actually abstinence-based programs because you're completely deterring your students from performing sexual activities, which keeps them out of the risk of STDs and unwanted pregnancies. According to Kim Rector, author of Abstinence Education, published in April 22nd of 2008, an abstinence-based curriculum that includes content on STDs is an important foundation for an effective sex education program. They found that when you stress abstaining from sex, that students seem to respond much better than when given their contraceptives and how to successfully use them, because most of the time they don't use them correctly. Nearly 2/3 of female teenagers have talked to their parents about how to say no to sex, compared with about 2 out of 5 male teenagers. According to Martinez, Abba Copen, on educating teenagers about sex in the United States, NCHS Data Brief number 44 in 2010. Kirby also states that Congress renewed the Title V abstinence-only program for 5 years. This funding stream makes available $50 million annually for grants to the states that promote sexual abstinence outside of marriage. So if you're promoting abstinence only, your school's going to get more funding, which makes it a better environment for your students all around. The only way to try and solve this problem is by strictly enforcing sexual education in middle schools and making it necessary for all of you guys to attend seminars so that you feel comfortable talking about the subject matter. You really need to make your students feel that you understand what you're talking about so that they can come to you with any questions. I understand that some of you feel that it's not your place to teach students about the issues involved with sexual activity and that the subject should be handled at home. However, for the most part, it's not handled at home. So they're not taught it at home and they're not taught it in schools. So, which leads to them just going on based on what they think is correct, which normally is not correct. So, if you don't feel that you can make a difference by teaching your students the risks of such sexual activity, then they may never learn it. But there are a lot of things that will happen if we do not implement abstinence-based sexual education. If we don't start using abstinence-based sexual education in our schools, the percentage of teenage pregnancies and unwanted STDs will continue to rise, and it's already a staggering number, so I can't imagine it getting any higher. The students in your class will become less interested in school because the rate of teens that finish high school and attend college that have had a baby in high school is alarmingly low. Once they don't come back to school, it's likely that they're not going to ever attend. However, if we do not implement the abstinence-based sexual education in schools and truly commit to enforcing it, I think that our students, if we truly do, I think that our students will learn that we want to help them make informed decisions about their sexuality and in turn prevent the risk of unwanted STDs and pregnancies. And your students will be less focused on things that are going on outside of the classroom and pay better attention and focus on their grades more. In conclusion, as educators of these young children, it is imperative that we take into account how the benefits outweigh the negative outcomes when we're talking about sexual education in our schools. Sexual education is one of the most overlooked aspects of the curriculum, and in some cases, it's not even required. I feel that it should be mandatory for every school to implement some form of sexual education in order to keep the health of their students. You can log on to www.avert.org in order to find helpful tips and facts about sex education that you can implement in your classroom and make the transition easier for you. We need to inform our students that they have a choice and that talking about sex is not something to be embarrassed about. It is better to ask questions and give honest answers than leave things to chance that you never know how the one answer could help change somebody's life. Thank you for your time.